Hello, welcome to today's video where I will go through the mentality I have to handle heavy RNG in speedrunning. If you're a speedrunner who regularly runs games with RNG elements, yet have a really hard time to handle these, or are someone who wants to run RNG heavy games but aren't sure if you could handle the frustration of it, or are just unsure of how to track progress, this video is for you. Before we start this video, a specific section in this video does assume that you know how to set long-term and short-term speedrunning goals to best use the information therein. However, it will still be of use for you even if you have not figured that out already, and will bring a suggestion, but mileage might vary, and I do strongly recommend you to learn how to set these to properly apply that section of the video in full. And finally, this video goes through my way of mentally handling the task of running an RNG heavy game. Due to how everyone reacts differently to different kinds of stress, what works for me will not certainly work for you. And this video serves more as a guideline rather than a strict how-to, but I still found it worth to share due to my long experience of running extremely RNG heavy categories. So without further ado, let us get into the video. For almost as long as games have existed as a concept, luck has been a core part about it. Might it be as small of a thing as who goes first in a game of chess, or bigger like the opening hand in a card game. And of course, this is a mechanic that's transferred to gaming once it got into its electronic form as well. While in most games, a key component of the game is to work around the luck you are given to still try to come out on top. In speedrunning though, bad luck, or bad RNG as speedrunners often calls it, is something that most of the time is impossible to work around. The reason for this is because in speedrunning, more often than not, what runners are competing against is their own best time ever, or for very ambitious runners, the best time ever performed by anyone. With such high goals in mind, good luck is pretty much a requirement to even be able to have a chance at reaching the goal, and in some cases anything but the top 1% or less of RNG outcomes are even plausible to reach the goals with. At which point, the game to a lot of runners feels like little else but rolling a die over and over again, while performing a run to the top of their abilities to maybe have a shot at getting the record eventually. This can create a huge feeling of stress and futility among speedrunners of luck-intensive games, who no matter how much they feel like they have improved, the results are never shown to them, and they sit day after day chasing those good outcomes that might happen at any point in time, or never, no matter how hard they try. However, due to the nature of RNG heavy categories, the mindset of grinding for a personal best or even the world record, and to ever expect to get it, can be quite a destructive attitude to have. While this is also true for normal speedruns to a certain degree, setting goals in terms of getting a personal best can still be a healthy and realistic long-term goal normally in speedrunning. As long as you set realistic goals, that is not so much true for RNG heavy runs though. The reason why this is so destructive in RNG heavy games is that unlike in less RNG reliant games, you hold absolutely zero control of whether or not you can ever get a new personal best. All you can do is to play at your best ability at all time to be able to claim a strong personal best when all stars align, and therefore the goal should be something that encourages and displays that progress. Therefore, my first advice to anyone who runs an RNG heavy game is to stop comparing against your PB, but start comparing against your average, while at the same time aiming to lower it over time. Maybe even set a goal for where you want your average to be, and finish more runs, of course. The reason why you should finish most runs is because if you don't, you will sit and reset to the first couple of splits forever, and getting literally no endgame practice due to the fact that, let's face it, if a run needs better RNG than 99% of runs, less than 1 in 10 runs will generally make it out of the very early part of the game, due to the RNG alone, not even accounting for player mistakes, which even without heavy RNG kills most runs. In RNG heavy runs, it is also far more important to have the endgame down than in normal runs if RNG affects how the endgame plays out in any way, shape or form. You are used to the challenges the endgame gives you. It is also far more fun to finish runs than to reset all the time, honestly. Our goal with reducing our average time does also mean that you can still get a good ending to outweigh your bad start, to keep your average low, which adds all the more reason to keep going with a bad run to avoid the harm of the initial bad splits. Another real destructive thing to do while speedrunning, but while running RNG heavy games in particular, is to get attached to your runs, especially if your run has RNG elements in the late game. The reason for this is both mental and performance related. There are few things that hurt as much in speedrunning as being on a world record pace and see it die to RNG at the very end of the run. Trust me, I have been there more times than I can remember. And what makes it hurt even more is if I have grown too attached to the run, thinking that this will be it. While it's fine to be excited, do never forget that ultimately the run isn't over until the timer stops, no matter how good it looks. This goes double for RNG heavy runs. The more pragmatic reason to avoid getting too attached to runs, even if you do not feel the sense of loss, is because most often when you get attached to a run, you are playing far more cautiously and might start to get nervous, which to many affects the gameplay negatively. As a speedrunner, your general way to handle things should absolutely already be the best way to handle a run. And to stop doing so and change it up when being on a good pace is generally speaking bad, although understandable to try to maintain the stability of the run. However, in an RNG heavy run, this is actually far more harmful, because RNG can still mess with your run, which means that just because you played safely, you might not get that personal best. Which means that ironically, by trying to secure a PB, you might end up ruining it instead. Again, maybe the most important takeaway of this video comes up: keep playing for low average, not for PB. And especially so when on PB pace. Trust me, I know better than most how very tempting it can be to want to secure those PBs, and I would lie if I said I have never myself fallen prey to this trap. In RNG heavy runs, it is far more tempting than normal to cling upon the few runs that look promising. However, this is why it is so important to keep reminding ourselves to stop with this. Another very important thing to think about to maintain your sanity when running an RNG heavy game is to never grow jealous of the world record time, in case you are not the one currently holding it. It might sound real difficult as you watch that run and think to yourself, if only I could get this RNG once in my life. Remember that they were most likely all farmed category for quite a long time as well to get that RNG, and to perform the run at the level needed to get a strong record with it. As even though a game has high RNG, it still requires quite some skill to get the world record no matter the luck you get. Unless you are literally speedrunning a game that is nothing but an RNG check with no player input at all, at which point setting any goals at all and caring about the results is indeed a waste of time and energy. But I have yet to see anyone run such a game, as even the most RNG heavy popular speed games have plenty of player input. Sure, RNG is not fair, but as you keep on grinding and your average keeps decreasing, the RNG you need to get a personal best or even a world record will as well decrease. As you keep getting more and more consistently good and start to implement better and better strategies and taking better choices, your odds are actually increasing. And this is the most important tip I can give you here: focus on what you have control over. Make sure to keep noticing all of your improvements and to remind yourself of how much better you have gotten over time. Do not be afraid to go back and look at your PB and notice how much better of a player you are now than back then, and remind yourself that if you had that run now, you would do so much better. You could probably even do better with worse luck than you had back then. Keep on noticing your progress, although you might not get a PB in a long time, and stay persistent and consistent. Because those two are skills that RNG heavy run tests above all else. The persistence to go on and the consistency to be able to deliver when it counts. And that was all for today's video. I do hope it was useful for you all. If you liked what you saw, please feel free to subscribe to my channel for more gaming and speedrun related content. If you want to know how to start speedrunning a new speed game now, when you are armed with some knowledge on how to handle RNG heavy games, please feel free to watch my video on how to start running a new game. If you want to learn more about the balance between running and practicing, I do also have a fantastic video on that. Until next time, plenty of hugs and stay cute and wonderful, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!